Hello YouTube, I'm Andy Mathis and I get a lot of questions from beginning watercolor artists about how to get started in painting watercolors. And the one thing about painting with watercolors, it's different than oils or acrylics in that you can't always correct your mistakes quite so easily. So if you need to change a color or you need to change a value, sometimes you can't get the paint off the paper, especially if it's a staining color, because some stain the paper worse than others. But a couple years ago, Winsor & Newton came out with a medium called lifting preparation. And I was sort of curious to sort of see how this would work and if it would be helpful to a beginner to make it a little easier to correct their painting if they made a mistake. And they've always had gum arabic around. It comes in the same jar, but it's got a little, this is what's actually in the paint mix when you buy the paint in the tube. When you get paint in a tube like this, it's got this one mixed in with the dry pigment to make the paint. So we're going to compare these two. I'll show you how to use them, and then we'll try to correct the mistake tomorrow, and I'll show you how they work. First thing, I've got a watercolor block here. This is Arches watercolor paper. It's 140 pound cold press, and I've marked off this little corner here where we can sort of figure out which one was which. With the lifting preparation, you paint it directly on the paper and allow it to dry before you put the paint on the paper. And the gum arabic, we're going to do it a couple different ways. We're going to put it in the paint, and then we're also going to put it directly on the paper as well. Let's do the lifting preparation first. I'm just going to drop a little bit on this, on the paper. See if you can see that. Yep. Grab a brush. We're just going to paint that little square there and let that dry. And then tomorrow we'll come back and paint over it, and once that's dry, we'll come back and sort of see if we can lift it compared to not having it on there at all. Now the other one is gum arabic. All right, that was the lifting preparation. Here's the gum arabic. We're going to put this one in two spots. One, I'm going to, normally you wouldn't paint this directly on the paper like that, but this spot here, I'm going to put we're going to use just gum arabic, which is sort of thick like corn syrup. I don't recommend using it, but just for demonstration, we're going to do that. I don't know if you can see on camera how thick that is. We're going to let that dry. And this one we're going to put, this square here we're going to use gum arabic, but we're going to drop it in the paint tomorrow. And this one we're going to mix the gum arabic with water and put that on paper. So I'm going to get another little bit of this. I'm going to drop it on the palette so I can mix it with a little bit of water. Move this over here where you can see it. Alright, so that is gum arabic mixed with water. And we're going to put it on this square. see that. Okay. So we're going to let those dry, and then tomorrow we're going to come back and put paint on them and let that dry, and then see if we can lift them and see how it turns out. So now that our paper is dry, we're going to mix up a little paint, and we're going to paint these spots where we marked off. I'm going to use a color that's two colors that stains the paper. One's a Phthalo Green. See if you can see this here. And we're going to mix up a pretty good bit because we're going to use it on all 6 spots. And then we're going to add a little bit of phthalo blue. This phthalo blue sort of dried up. So both these are really staining, so we'll be able to tell which of the lifting mediums, or if the gum arabic helps be able to scrub out that in case you make a mistake when you're painting. So we're going to mix those together. Okay, so you can sort of see that. So I'm going to come back over here to the paper. And these 2 spots here are not going to have any, there's no additive, it's just paper in both those spots. So we're going to paint one of these. Okay, and then this spot here is where we mixed up the gum arabic and water on the paper, and that we let that dry. So we're going to take the same paint mix, we're just going to paint over that and let that dry. This one here is where we put the lifting medium. So we're going to that one, and then move this over. This one was just plain gum arabic straight out of the jar. I'm going to paint that. You can see how that doesn't really. Okay. Mix up a little more paint here. Okay, that's the same 2 colors that we started with. But to this, now we're going to add a little bit of this gum arabic to the paint, because this paper you can see where we've added that to it. Gum arabic is the binder that's in the tube paint, so it's going to make it a little. It's going to make it a little thicker. I don't know if you can tell that on camera. So and then we're going to come over here to this square for the paper. Zoom out. We're going to come back to this square here. We're going to paint this square with this where we put the gum arabic in the pigment. Okay, so we got all 6 filled in there. This is just plain paint and water, plain paint and water, plain paint on top of where we put gum arabic by itself on the paper, gum arabic mixed with water on the paper, lifting medium, and then where we mix the gum arabic in the pigment. So now we're going to let that dry, and then tomorrow we're going to come back and scrub those out, and you'll see how they made it easier to get, comparing where it's easier to get the paint off the paper. So it's a new day, and we've let our little squares of paint dry overnight. So now we're going to scrub them out, and sort of so you can compare how the gum arabic and the lifting preparation might help you to correct a mistake that you've made on your painting. Here in the upper left, we're going to scrub this one first. I've got this little short scrubby brush. It's got sort of like nylon bristles. So that's what we're going to scrub these with. And I'm going to stick it in a little water. We're going to come over here to the first one where it's just paint on paper. And it's a staining pigment, so it's going to be sort of hard to come off. Actually, I'm going to wet all these. And so let them soak for a little bit. So there we go. That's the one with lifting preparation. I'm going to save that one to last. Alright, we're going to come back over here and we're going to scrub. And we're going to blot. And you can sort of see how a little bit of that pigment comes up, but not to where the point where you can get to the white of the paper. And come over here to the lifting preparation one. It does a little better if you compare it back to the original spot here. Now, this one had none in it. This will be like the first one just above it. Pretty staining. This one is where we mix some water with the gum arabic and put it on the paper and let it dry before we put paint on top of it. You can see how we're able to scrub that out almost back to the white of the paper. Actually, and if you compare the two, it's actually a little bit better than the lifting preparation. And then this one here to the right of that one is gum arabic, and where we mixed the gum arabic not on the paper, but we mixed it in the paint. See, so it works about as well to put it on the paper, or it works about as well just to drop it in the paint as it does to put it on the paper, if you can see by these two right here. Now this one up here is where we put pure gum arabic on the paper and let it dry. Nobody's actually will probably not paint like that, because it's like painting on top of corn syrup. It's not really good. You can see how the paint sort of bubbled up there. But watch this, how this comes off. Now that's actually stained the paper a little bit there, but you can see where in parts of that one where the gum arabic completely sealed the paper, where you can get back to pure white. That's where I've scrubbed it up and now it's staining again. Okay, let me zoom in so you can see that one. Okay, so I'll zoom in so you can see all of them. Here's where no gum arabic and no lifting preparation was used. It was just paint. This is just pure gum arabic. And you can see how the white up there at the top, you're able to get back to pretty much just the total white of the paper. Here's lifting preparation. Here's another one with nothing in it, just the paint. Here's gum arabic mixed with water applied to the paper before the paint was applied. And here's gum arabic applied to, just dropped in the paint film as it's applied to the paper. So I hope that makes it a little easier to understand how to use these watercolor mediums in your watercolor paintings to make it a little easier to correct any mistakes that you come across. Thanks for watching, and keep painting.